The wind howled across the shattered plains of eastern Ukraine, kicking up dust and ash that stung the eyes of the thousands gathered under a bruised October sky in 2025. The war, now grinding into its fourth brutal year, had turned the land into a graveyard of twisted metal and broken dreams, a jagged scar between east and west that threatened to pull the world into its abyss. NATO tanks rumbled in the distance, their engines a low growl, while Russian artillery loomed like silent sentinels beyond the horizon. In the middle, a sprawling crowd of civilians, soldiers, and aid workers huddled together, their faces etched with weariness, clinging to a flicker of hope as a lone figure stepped onto a rickety stage made of salvaged wood and rusted nails. Daniel Carter was no stranger to these scarred lands. At 38, the American diplomat turned peace advocate had spent years shuttling between Kyiv and Moscow, chasing ceasefires that crumbled like sand. His dark hair was streaked with premature gray, his hazel eyes shadowed by sleepless nights spent poring over maps and casualty reports. He wore a faded jacket, its collar frayed, and a pair of scuffed boots that had carried him through mud and blood. Today, he carried no notes, no polished speech, just a microphone and a voice that trembled with conviction as he faced the sea of faces stretching out before him. "We're not here to point fingers," he began, his words cutting through the wind in halting Ukrainian, then English. "We're not here to pick winners or losers in this madness. We're here to choose Lafido, believe there's something bigger than the bombs, the bullets, the hate." His voice cracked slightly, betraying the weight of the years, but he pressed on. "I've seen children die in their mother's arms. I've seen soldiers weep over brothers they'll never bury. But I've also seen strangers share their last bread, and I've heard prayers whispered in foxholes. That's what I believe in. That's why I'm here." The crowd leaned in, their silence a fragile thread holding back despair. A Ukrainian grandmother in a tattered shawl wiped tears from her wrinkled cheeks. A young NATO volunteer, barely out of his teens, clutched a Red Cross vest, his knuckles white. A Russian deserter, his uniform stripped of insignia, stood at the edge, eyes darting nervously. They were a tapestry of the war's toll, drawn together by Carter's words, raw, unpolished, and pulsing with a faith that felt both ancient and defiant. Halfway through his speech, a murmur rippled through the front rows. Heads turned, hands pointed. A child no more than 3 years old slipped free from the crowd's embrace. She was a wisp of a thing, her blonde curls tangled with dirt, her blue eyes wide and unblinking. Her dress, once white, hung in rags, its hem dragging through the mud as she toddled forward on bare feet. She weaved through the forest of legs, ignoring the outstretched arms trying to pull her back, her gaze locked on Carter like a compass finding north. Security, a mix of UN peacekeepers and local militia, moved to intercept, their radios crackling with orders. But Carter raised a hand, his voice steady over the mic. "Let her through." He crouched at the stage's edge, watching as she climbed the steps with a stubborn grit that belied her size. The crowd held its breath, 1,000 eyes following her every move. She reached him, pausing for a heartbeat, then stretched out her tiny arms. Carter hesitated, his throat tightening. Then he knelt fully, letting her wrap her hands around his neck. Her grip was fierce, desperate, and the microphone still pinned to his jacket caught her ragged breathing, amplifying it across the plains like a heartbeat. The silence deepened, a sacred hush falling over the rally. Then she spoke, her voice small but piercing, cutting through the wind like a blade. "God says stop." The words hung there, impossibly clear, impossibly pure. Carter's breath caught, his eyes widening as he pulled back to look at her. Her face was streaked with grime, but those eyes blue as a winter sky held a weight he couldn't fathom. "What's your name, little one?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, the mic trembling in his hand. "Anya," she said, her lips quivering as she hugged him again, burying her face in his shoulder. The crowd shattered not with cheers, but with a raw, primal surge of sound. Gasps turned to sobs, murmurs to prayers. A Ukrainian soldier dropped his rifle, its clatter swallowed by the rising tide of voices. An aid worker fell to her knees, hands clasped. Phones shot up, their screens glowing as they captured the moment. Carter standing, Anya in his arms, his face a mask of awe and disbelief. God says stop. He repeated, louder now, testing the weight of her words. Maybe he's speaking through her. Maybe he's been trying all along. The video spread like wildfire. Within minutes, it hit X, then YouTube, racking up millions of views as the clip looped endlessly. The toddler's hug, her whispered command, Carter's stunned echo. Anya Speaks trended globally, drowning out news of troop movements and sanctions. Comments poured in, a torrent of awe and division. A miracle. She's the voice we need. Stage for sympathy. The image of Anya clinging to Carter, her tiny frame against his weathered one, became a viral icon, shared by pastors, pundits, and parents alike. Memes sprouted. When God sends a toddler to do man's job, paired with her solemn face. But the story was just beginning. The rally didn't end with quiet reverence. As Carter carried Anya off stage, searching for her family, a shadow flickered overhead. A Russian drone, hovering just beyond the ceasefire line, tilted sharply, its lens glinting in the fading light. Carter barely registered it before a crack split the Ares sniper's bullet, fired from the eastern ridge. It tore through his sleeve, grazing his arm, and he stumbled, blood soaking the fabric as he twisted to shield Anya. The crowd screamed, scattering like leaves in a storm as security swarmed the stage. "Get her out!" Carter roared, shoving Anya into a guard's arms. But she clung to him, her small hands fisting his jacket, tears streaming down her face. "No, stop!" she wailed, her voice a knife through the chaos. The guard, a burly Ukrainian with a scarred face, pried her loose, sprinting for cover as more shots rang out, kicking up dirt and splintering wood. Carter dropped behind a barricade, clutching his arm, pain searing through him as his mind raced. "They're targeting me. Or her. Why her?" The attack lasted 47 seconds, a lifetime in the panic. Drones buzzed louder, NATO reinforcements roared in from the west, and the rally dissolved into a war zone. Live streams captured it all, Carter bleeding, Anya's cries, the crowd fleeing as bullets stitched the ground. Anya attacked, surged alongside Anya Speaks, fueling a global firestorm. "They try to kill her," one post shrieked. "She's a threat to their war," cried another. Within hours, the UN convened an emergency session. NATO pointed fingers at Moscow, and Russia countered with denials, blaming a rogue operative. The truth drowned in the noise, but the image of Anya's tear-streaked face burned into the world's memory. By morning, Carter lay in a field hospital, his arm wrapped in gauze, his eyes fixed on a cracked phone screen replaying the rally footage. The tent smelled of antiseptic and fear, its canvas walls trembling with the distant thud of artillery. A nurse approached, her hands shaking as she clutched a clipboard. "Her parents are gone," she said, her voice barely audible. "Shelling last week, near Donetsk. She's been wandering alone." Carter's chest tightened, a lump rising in his throat. "Alone, and she found me." He pushed himself up, wincing as pain lanced through his arm. "Where is she?" Anya sat in a corner of the tent, curled around a tattered doll, its button eyes hanging by threads. Her curls were matted with sweat, her dress stained with mud and his blood. Carter knelt beside her, ignoring the ache in his bones. "Anya," he said softly, "why me?" She looked up, her gaze unervingly steady, and whispered, "You listen." Before he could process her words, the tent flap burst open. A UN official, tall, stern, his suit pristine despite the war, strode in, flanked by soldiers in blue helmets. "We're taking her," he barked, his accent clipped and cold. "She's a security risk. Step aside, Carter." Carter surged to his feet, planting himself between them and Anya. "She's a child, not a bargaining chip." His voice shook with fury, his fists clenched. The official's eyes narrowed, his hand resting on a holstered pistol. "You don't understand what she represents. That drone didn't miss by chance. She's a target or a weapon. Move." or we'll move you. A scuffle erupted. Carter shoved the official, who stumbled back, barking orders. Soldiers lunged, grabbing Carter's arms as he roared. "You won't touch her!" Anya screamed. "No, stop!" Her voice a high, desperate keen in, the tent plunged into darkness, the generator's hum dying abruptly. Shouts filled the void, boots scuffled, and something heavy crashed to the floor. When the lights flickered back on, the official lay sprawled, dazed, a folding chair toppled beside him. Carter stood over him, breathing hard, Anya clinging to his leg like a lifeline. The soldiers froze, their rifles half raised, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Carter scooped Anya up, her small body trembling against his chest. "We're leaving," he said, his voice a low growl, and stormed out into the night. The hospital staff watched, stunned, as he disappeared into the shadows of the war zone, a bleeding man and a tiny girl defying an army, a system, a world on fire. The story didn't stay contained. A leaked video of the tent clash hit X within hours, then YouTube, igniting a global inferno. Child of Peace trended as millions dissected the blackout, the fight, Anya's cry. Experts weighed in, their voices drowned by the clamor. She's a prodigy. It's trauma speaking. A staged psyop. Newsrooms scrambled to keep up, but the real twist came 24 hours later, when a new clip surfaced, grainy, shaky, shot from a hidden camera in a concrete bunker. It showed Anya alone, sitting cross-legged on the floor, her doll discarded beside her. She stared at nothing, her lips moving in a whisper. They don't hear. But he does. The camera panned slowly, revealing a wall scrawled with symbols, crosses, circles, jagged lines no linguist could decipher. Her voice grew softer, almost sing-song. "It's coming. Soon." Then her eyes snapped to the lens, and she smiled a smile, too knowing, too old for her 3 years. "Tell them," she said, and the feed cut to black. The internet shattered. Anya Prophet exploded, hashtags colliding in a viral storm. Child of Peace, Anya speaks, what is coming? Religious leaders proclaimed her a saint, their sermons live-streamed to millions. Skeptics dissected the video, crying deep fake. Governments issued statements vague, panic demanding her location. Carter, now a fugitive with Anya, became a lightning rod, a hero to those who saw hope in her words, a traitor to those who feared her power. The war shifted, not with treaties, but with whispers. Soldiers on both sides hesitated, their fingers lingering over triggers as tales of the child who spoke spread through the trenches. A Russian lieutenant defected, crossing the line with a crumpled photo of Anya, muttering, "She's right. It has to stop." A NATO pilot grounded his jet mid-mission, sobbing on camera. I heard her voice in my head. Ceasefire talks stuttered back to life, fragile and fraught, as Anya's image hugging Carter, screaming in the tent-plastered every screen still flickering with life. Protests erupted worldwide, a tidal wave of voices echoing her words. In Kyiv, thousands marched, chanting "God says stop" through tear gas and rain. In Washington, a vigil lit up the National Mall, candles spelling out her name. In Moscow, a silent demonstration defied riot police, their signs scrawled with her symbols. The video of her bunker whisper looped endlessly, her smile haunting every corner of the digital world. Carter resurfaced a week later, in a live stream from a location cloaked in shadow. His arm was in a sling, his face gaunt, Anya asleep beside him on a threadbare blanket. "I don't know what she is," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "A child? A messenger? Something more? She's changed me. She's changed everything." He looked at her, her chest rising and falling in sleep, then back at the camera. This war's not just about borders or power. It's about what we believe, what we're willing to fight for or stop for. I believe her. Do you? The stream cut abruptly, leaving a void that roared with speculation. Child Who Stopped the War trended for weeks, her words a mantra, her symbols a cipher no one could crack. Carter and Anya vanished again, slipping through the cracks of a world too broken to hold them. The war didn't end not yet, but it slowed, its gears grinding with doubt. A Russian general ordered a stand down, citing the girl's voice. A NATO commander pulled back troops, his eyes hollow as he murmured, "She's in my dreams." Anya's hug, her whisper, her flight with Carter became legenda story told in hushed tones around campfires, in bunkers, in churches. The symbols she'd drawn spread like wildfire, scribbled on walls, tattooed on skin, a mystery that defied explanation. And as the dust settled, one truth lingered. She'd stunned a crowd, then a world, with 3 simple words. Was she Divinia, a child touched by something beyond? A victim, her mind warped by war's cruelty? A pawn in a game too vast to see? The war teetered, not from bombs or treaties, but from her echo. Her signal rippled on, unstoppable. What do you think she was? Drop your thoughts below. Share this if her voice won't let you go. The war's not over, but maybe she's the spark we've been waiting for, the child who stopped us all in our tracks.